Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about something that kind of leads on from some of the videos that I've made, some of the other videos I've made recently in regards to gender and whatnot, and that is sexuality, and that's because this issue usually goes hand in hand or is very much viewed in a similar light or advocated for by certain people. And the thing is, I see it as a different issue. Firstly, because it is one. It involves so many other different things that are completely divorced from gender to one degree or another. But also because it's something that, again, even now when you've got people outside of the norm in regards to sexuality are gaining more support, recognition, equality in terms of things like marriage, and so on and so forth. And as a result, I just wanted to have a chat about it because I have seen people who have both done very well and felt very happy about coming out as something different than a simple heterosexual individual. And I've also seen people, and in a couple of cases, interacted with and coached people to one degree or another who have had a much harder time of it, and how it can be very shaking to a person. And again, one of the ways that I want to go and look at this and address this is more by going back and taking a look at it from a very evolutionary kind of perspective. And so there are a large number of people on the planet. One, it's fair to say the majority that are heterosexual, attracted to the opposite sex, and as a result, they follow along with that, and that's absolutely fine. But then you've got the other issues that spring up when any kind of discussion comes up about other forms of sexuality. Not so much now in regards to homosexuality, because quite frankly, it's become a much more widely accepted thing, apart from in certain areas of the world where religion informs the arguments against, for the most part, or values, societal values that have been reinforced by from a religious point into a political point. Um, and quite frankly, those places that still cling to those ideas in such a way without being able to adopt a live and let live kind of attitude, um, they are places that are have so many other problems as well that need to be addressed by their own people, or to one extent or another by the global community, that it's a much harder thing to discuss purely based on one facet of their overall negativity towards anything that doesn't conform to their beliefs or ideas. But talking about other forms of sexuality that stand out or that have been recently discussed with varying reactions, most prominently comes up with bisexuality. And there was an article, a study that went around recently, and it was discussing that the article found, or the study found, that there was very little in the way of evidence to suggest that women were ever purely straight. It was always seemingly, from what they found, a case of they were either homosexual or they were bi, and there was no two ways about it. Now I took a look at that, and the numbers seemed very small. It hardly seemed particularly representative, but at the same time, it wouldn't be a huge surprise to me if that was in some way accurate. And there are a number of reasons why I say that, but from just looking at it, as said, from an evolutionary perspective, and looking at some of our closest cousins in regards to species, then you can kind of go, okay, fair enough. So sexuality is very much is something, or sex is very much used as a bonding experience by certain species. I mean, you only need to look at bonobo chimps, and where sex is one of their main forms of interaction, between, interpersonal interpersonal interactions. It stands out that sex can be more than purely reproductive within a species. And you look at again the kind of caveman idea of men being hunters, out going, killing, chopping up, bringing back, and you've got women gathering around the wherever they have made their home, gathering the small amounts of supplies in terms of fruits and berries and things, looking after children, looking after each other. And it isn't surprising that the sexual element in regards to bonding would be more prevalent in women. Just from a practical standpoint, women who are in one place looking after those people, having to bond very closely over just the day to day, you need something to reinforce that, because you're not necessarily living through conflict or anything like that on a regular basis. You're in one place and you're not having to potentially put yourself in harm's way an awful lot. So the way that you're going to bond is going to be through social interaction directly, which is why you see women conversing much more, why there are the bonding experiences between women tend to be far more social, and the ones between men tend to be far more active in various ways. Because looking at a male hunter, you're dealing with the other men around you to go and attack a thing and deal with a thing, and you need to be able to trust and rely on those people, even if you don't necessarily know them that well. So the more you do that thing, the more you trust and rely on those people, and the more that they prove they're trustworthy and reliable, and so on and so forth, you're going to develop that bond instead of just sitting down and talking. I mean, it undoubtedly happens, but at the same time, there is a reason for men bonding over things like sport more than bonding over just sitting down and having a chat. Yeah? And as a result, you take a look at this and you go, okay, so if looking at it from a practical angle, sex being used to reinforce social interactions that promote bonding and so on, in one form or another, makes a kind of sense, because social interaction and sex, they're in terms of just a conversation and sex, they have very much the same things. You are having to be both in the same place for a reasonable period of time, in reasonable proximity to one another, and you get a stronger bond as a result of doing it. If guys were more focused on the sex side of things as a form of bonding, in terms of hunting, they wouldn't have been very good, because yes, you have to be stationary and you have to be within proximity to one another as a form of bonding, when if you're hunting, you're always going to be on the move. If you stop, there's a potential that some other predator is going to get you, and you're not going to stop and hold up long enough to try and bond over that. And this is one of the reasons this is one of the reasons why you can probably see that the vast majority of people on the planet, I believe the number sits somewhere around only 15 or so % of people tend to be specifically homosexual. I could be wrong on that number. I'll have to double check that, but I believe that's the number that I saw most recently. And as a result, it's a case of those the grand majority of people who are heterosexual are following that basic design of being men having this focus and women having a different one. But as a result, yes, it wouldn't surprise me if bisexuality was more prevalent among women than it is among men. But here's the next thing that pops up, and that is that when people say that kind of sexuality is a spectrum, I'm more willing to take this on board than I was in regards to the gender stuff, because the gender stuff can be divided very, very easily, whilst there are grey areas. And as a result, it's like, yeah, okay, I can believe that it's a scale, but then again, it's also sometimes very hard for people to pin themselves on that scale just due to the environment that they happen to be in, not fitting their traits, their behaviours. I mean, I'm personally one of these people that fits very much in the just straightforward heterosexual norm, because if you turn to me and go, that guy over there is attractive, I don't get any of that. I get a grey box appear in my head going, yes, that's male. If you wanted me then to analyse them in regards to how symmetrical their face was, whether or not they look healthy, and so on and so forth, I could do that. But when, for example, if my girlfriend turns around to me and goes, well, he's good looking, I just have to shrug, because I don't get what makes that individual physically or attractive, because it's just not something that adds up in my head. That's just the way it is for me. But I understand, however, that there are people who have a much wider appreciation, and as a result, yes, a scale being there, absolutely fine. However, that still comes then looking at it from where the problems arise, though. When you've got groups of individuals who are, usually to one extent for religious reasons, or out of fear of the unknown as well, when those people are pressing back against the abnormal forms of sexuality, homosexuality, bisexuality, the ones that aren't as obvious and prevalent, then it's that's where it starts to pull people to pieces inside, and that's where problems start to happen. And it so much so that suicide rates in amongst homosexual individuals are somewhat are substantial. And it's a case of, though, you'll see a thing and you'll go, in the mindset that I've observed, it seems to be that it usually comes down to perceiving your behaviour as abnormal, and therefore feeling that you don't fit, feeling that the diversity along this potential spectrum that exists sets you so far outside of things that then you become negative about yourself because you internalize the opinions of other people. Now, in regards to sexuality, unless you are actively doing it on the street, which quite frankly you shouldn't be doing, that's a dirty place to do it. Don't do it. You catch something. It's not good. But if you're doing it out on the street, then yes, you're probably going to be arrested, and it is a bad thing, and there are numerous reasons why that is going to occur, and you should know better. But if it's a case of you're doing it in the safety of your own home, consenting adults and all that jazz, then no one should care. There should be no issues around that, because choosing a partner is entirely a personal thing. Whether you are bi, homosexual, straight, or anything else along that spectrum in one form or another, then you can choose who you want to be with, you can choose who you want to act with, and so on and so forth. And as long as you're doing it within the law, and as long as you're doing it safely, that's more for your benefit than not, then there should be no issue with that. And if there is ever an issue with that, then in regards to someone telling you that you shouldn't be, then if it's a doctor telling you that what you're doing is causing you health problems, then maybe listen. Yeah, there are people who I know who have actually suffered some rather negative medical issues as a result of activities that they were pursuing through their relationship. In which case, yes, fair enough, you might want to listen to your doctor. But if it's anyone other than some kind of healthcare professional, then quite frankly, don't listen. There's no point to listening. Yes, I realise that in me saying this, that there are going to be places around the world where if you actively don't listen and actively follow what you feel and what you want, then potentially you're putting your life at risk. And for those people, I feel very sorry, and I hope that at some point in the near future that situation changes. However, otherwise, especially with the more recent developments in law for allowing gay marriage and civil partnerships and whatever else in that realm of things, there is absolutely no reason for you to listen to people, be they your parents, be they other members of your family, be they friends, be they anyone else. Firstly, if they're your family, if they don't accept the way that you have developed, then either it's their fault on a genetic or a kind of a nature or a nurture level, or they're just not treating you as well as they should do. Because especially if it's your parents, they brought you into the world. You didn't have a choice of what what your genes were suggesting. And considering that things like being homosexual does seem to be an expressive thing from genetics, and does seem to be fairly noticeable in other species as well. Where you are not abnormal in that regard. You are abnormal in regards to the norm for the human populace at the moment is being straight, but there are numerous reasons as to why people are gay, and those they are expressed from your genes, they are expressed from whatever else. It's not necessarily a thing that can in any way be avoided. You cannot pray it away. You cannot convert people from it without possibly maybe excessive gene therapy, which again I wouldn't suggest, because it's what a waste of resources. But take on board that yes, you deserve to be able to do what you want and how you want it, and be with who you want, and so on and so forth, as long as it's legal. But the other thing that I would say is that it is a private thing. And so when at times I've seen the people that have had an easy ride of it, who have been accepted, who have done well, who then for some reason feel that they have to make a point about it. No one cares. If you've been accepted, and if things have gone well for you, then the chances are that no one really cares about your sexuality. So you making more of a deal of it than it could be only ensures that the issue remains there. It doesn't let it fade into obscurity. It doesn't let people forget it. And if people don't forget it, if people don't just start to let it go, then you're going to have the problems continually resurfacing. And as a result, if you've been accepted, if you've done okay, if you see someone else being put through hardship, speak up for them. Sure, I'd like to think that any reasonable human being would speak up for someone else that they see suffering. But otherwise, it's a private matter. Deal with it in your private life, and if your private life is fine, then just treat everyone the same. Just treat everyone normally. Don't make a big deal out of it, and just let it run. And I realise that there are going to be people who dislike that view, but as with racism and other forms of discrimination in certain parts of the world, they are still big problems that need to be directly addressed, because they are involving people getting murdered and destroyed in various different ways. But if you are in a part of the world where these things are becoming more and more accepted, then you are achieving things already purely by existing and living out the life as an example. You do not have to make a lot of noise purely to make noise. As with racism, where you are living in a place where race is not an issue, for example, for the most part in the UK, then the simple case is, if I encounter another person and I just go, you are you and I am me, it's nice to meet you, yeah, then it doesn't matter what race you are, what sexuality you are, or anything like that. it's just an appreciation of another person, and as a result, nothing else matters. All of the other stuff is just stuff that has informed that person standing, allowed that person to stand there in front of me and greet me. That's all it is. You don't need to continually make a big fuss about things, because the more of a big fuss about things you make, the more tempting it is for other people to strike back against it. Anyway, that's kind of my rundown of how my mind works around sexuality, how I've advised or discussed things with how I've discussed things with other people in regards to this subject, and how when people genuinely think they need to make a difference, the way to make the difference is to live the example you want to see, live the change you want to see in the world. Because just making noise about it just makes you another noisy target that isn't actually doing anything. If you just live out your life being awesome, doing the thing that you wanted to do, feeling the way that you want to feel with the people that you want to do it with, no one can stop you, and no one's going to take notice of you in a big enough way to attack you, but they are going to take note of your example when you pass and touch the lives of others as you go. Anyway, I'm sure that I may get some hate for this. I'm sure that I might not. Who knows? But one way or another, if you've got an opinion on this, again, I'm interested to hear it. Please drop it down in the comments down below. I nearly said description. I nearly fucked up again. I didn't do it. I managed to stop. But otherwise, drop me a like and subscribe for more. Anyway, take care, guys. Bye.